Welcome back to the ENFASYS podcast, where we explore what it really takes to transform Europe's food and farming systems. In earlier episodes, we talked about lock-ins, farmer realities, leverage points, behavior, markets, and policies. Today, we zoom in on something a bit more behind the scenes, but absolutely crucial if we want any of this to work in practice. We're going to understand how we actually engage people on the ground. In this episode, we will hear how ENFASYS has tried to support real change in our case studies by bringing farmer, advisors, value chain actors, and policymakers around the same table, not just to talk, but to co-create ways forward. We will focus on two very different stories. One for Flanders in Belgium, where the project works with organic vegetable sector, and one from Serbia, where the focus is on regenerative farming. I'm joined today by Louis Tessier, who coordinates the Flemish case and helps guide stakeholder engagement across all ENFASYS case studies, and by Maja Mudimir, who leads the Serbian case study. Together, we will unpack the work, what didn't, and what we have learned about making stakeholder processes actually support transformation, not just produce another report. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, David.
Great to be here.
Okay, let's dive in. Well, first of all, I think we need to understand what stakeholder engagement is and how it has been implemented in the ENFASYS project and why it so much matters. Luis, as you lead and coordinate this type of activities across the 10 case studies, what can you tell us more about this?
So in ENFASYS, we engage a lot of different stakeholders. So we know from previous work, in the previous podcasts, we've seen that transitions involve a variety of actors, not just farmers, but the people that surround them, the value chain actors, people that set policy, farmer advisors, even consumers. And they are part of the system. And we need to engage them not to just get their opinion about the whole matter, but also because they are actors. It means that they have the capacities to make a change. And to involve them, you need to engage them in a process. And that's what we try to do through a lot of different tactics and practices that we will talk about right now.
Okay, thank you, Louis. This was very interesting. And here we have two case study coordinators. So you had the opportunity to really engage stakeholders in practice, and you, Louis, had the opportunity to oversee the stakeholder engagement practices across various case studies. And I think today we really want to understand what you have done and maybe also the mistakes, the challenges, and what can be improved in the future, but also what were the learning takeaways and the positives aspects, and what maybe has surprised you in doing so. Firstly, Maya, I'm interested to understand a bit more about your case studies. So if you can let us know, first of all, who are the stakeholders involved here in your case study, and why this case study was important to you, to your organization, and to the project, and why it was selected?
I have to say, firstly, it was selected because we had some previous experience coming from another project. And so we discovered actually the small group, small community gathered around the regenerative farming in Vojvodina. That's the northernmost part of Serbia. It's very favorable for arable production. So this community is actually a community of arable producers, and they are gathered around the two figures, two personas, of course. Like one is agricultural consultant coming from the institute, and the other one is a private agricultural consultant, and the farmer, regenerative farmer as well. So these practices, the thing is that was the interesting for us, it's how these practices are spread around, around these two main personas and among the farmers. So that's the one thing. And on the other side is also what we discovered is unconnected parts of the system. It's research, academia, also the national consultancy, those are the parts that there has some, there are including some individual cases who are like involved into this sustainable regenerative practices, but are not still not connected with this group, with this community of farmers. So our idea, like for the organization, for the AB, was actually to connect all these parts together and maybe to form something meaningful out of it. So the idea was actually to form some kind of alliance or association. Then throughout the process, we actually formed the alliance, Regagri Alliance of Serbia, which is now very active. And so that's the idea. That was like this interesting story about disconnected parts actually bring us to something that is really meaningful. And the ENFASYS was a tool for this. So this case study actually served as a tool for forming the whole base, the network of actors that are surrounding this regenerative farming in Serbia.
That's very interesting. Thank you. And if I understand well, at local level, you had heterogeneous group of stakeholders, some of which were collaborating, let's say, around these two personas. So they were giving consultancy to farmers, and maybe there were already farmers that were talking to each other, maybe because they were living nearby or because they were interested and their interest was sparked by some articles on the internet. I don't know. But there were also a lot of other actors that may have been important for your case studies, or let's say influential in the system, but that were not connected to it. So my understanding is that what you have done through also all the activities of the project is to bring them together. And how did that look in practice when you try to bring people that maybe they didn't know each other or they had different ideas or views on regenerative agriculture, for instance? If you can tell us a bit more about that.
Yes, exactly. That's what we did. Like the first we did in-depth like desk analysis. So we actually discovered this active system, a community of farmers and two consultants, but also like these parts that are not connected to them, like the researchers, like consultants, other consultants also, but also decision makers as well. So we decided to connect them that. So we use, like, as I said, like the ENFASYS as a tool, but also all of the activities within the use case. And so like the workshops, interviews, focus groups. But also we, putting on aside this ENFASYS part, we also use the ENFASYS for this alliance, developing of the alliance, Regagri Alliance in Serbia. So like we used some events within the alliance for the ENFASYS as well. So it works in both ways. Like, so the main role of all activities was actually to make these disconnected parts connected and collaborate. And I think that's the thing that is coming, that's the main result coming from the ENFASYS, that now these people are connected and they're collaborating even without the ENFASYS and also without the Regenerative Alliance as well. I think that's what we did.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a very impactful result at local level. So congratulations. And Louis, on the other hand, your case study is about organic farming. Did you face the same challenge? Did you face a network of stakeholders that were, let's say, disconnected? Or in your case, as I may guess and be wrong, the network was already more connected and was already working together?
So there's quite a contrast with the Serbian case, in the sense that organic farming in Flanders, and the stagnant or like the lack of growth of organic farming is pretty well researched, and it's a small community of organic farmers, but they're very well connected. They're also connected with different NGOs and environmental organizations. There's also a lot of research, not only, of course, on organic farming, but on agriculture in general. A lot of research institutions, practical research institutions, and of course we're Brussels, so we're very much connected as well with all of the very important decisions that are even made at the EU level. So in that sense, a lot of people know each other, but still, and this is what I found surprising, is that even in those type of environments where people think that they have understood the problem, people might end up not talking to each other. They just assume. And for instance, what I found like very inspiring is when we organized a business workshop where we brought people from the bigger supermarket chains of the producer organizations, but also advisors, farmer advisors together. They were very happy to be able to talk about it, to have that forum, to exchange and think about the systemic barriers in that they confront, and understanding that if they could work together and coordinate better, they could make some real progress. And that's also the bit of the joy, as well as being a case study coordinator. Yeah, can bring people together. And after the meeting, I felt like, okay, we've improved the world a little bit today. So that's it, so we shouldn't underestimate the power of bringing people together.
Yeah, that's a nice feeling. And I believe in Serbia, you also implemented several workshops. You brought people together. Do you think that these kind of workshops are the best tool to bring together a heterogeneous group of people that maybe are also not knowing each other? What were the challenges or actually leading workshops on different topics? Could be policies, it could be business, when they actually didn't know each other, but maybe they had a similar interest. Was that actually a challenge at all, or it came easier than expected?
It was a challenge. No, definitely it was a challenge. But the thing is, like, you have to prepare the good and meaningful reason to gather people. That's the thing. So, like, it's not only the workshop. Like, so we were going to talk about, like, the things, the challenges, like the barriers, whatever that is. But like, if you're including or reminding them, like, you really have to show them the meaning of it. That's the thing. So, and like, throughout the time, it becomes more easier to gather the people, because throughout the time they get to know each other. So it was a kind of a gathering where they are discussing also some other things after the workshop or during the workshop. So like it's really like the topic, probably it was doable because in Serbia, like, this topic is really new. And it's full of challenges. I mean, full of barriers, since it's a very systematically connected. So and I think that there's people, they actually found it useful for themselves, like, so that they're really, developing something, and that could be something more from the workshops, from any of this activity that could be, useful for them.
Yeah, what you said, it surprised me in a way that my experience and my understanding is that when you continuously involve the same people, or even, let's say, different people within the same network, they may develop certain fatigue of being constantly involved. They have a busy life. They don't necessarily get retributed for joining these workshops. So what is a challenge that you have faced in continuously engaging these actors? Because you just said, like, the more they met, the more they were interested in joining these activities. What was the secret for that, if there was a secret, let's say? And on the other hand, Louis, did you face the same, or it was a different situation in your case? So please, Maya, first.
The secret was actually the collaboration, like the thing that we actually formed this network, and the collaboration in between them. That's what I mentioned. Like that's the top result coming from this. So like they were discussing their things. Their, I don't know, researcher and the farmer. They were discussing some kind of experiment needed for the research. But also something else, like they have the different ventures that they started. So like I think it was useful for them. Like,
so actually, I believe in your case is the fact that they didn't know each other, but maybe they were driven by the same visions. And by getting them together, they develop new ideas or new collaborations, and then maybe they were looking forward indeed to meet each other to turn on again the spark of ideas and innovation and so on. But I'm curious to know about, for example, organic farming, which is, on the other hand, as you, Louis, you said before, something that is more established, more structured. Was it the same for you, or you faced more challenges in engaging stakeholders? Because I believe you both have engaged stakeholders for a period of almost 3 years, which is a long period.
Yeah, stakeholder fatigue. We have a term for it now. Is a real problem and across cases, particularly because ENFASYS did have the ambition to bring stakeholders together and engage them through multiple steps, behavioral workshop, business workshops, policy workshops, then in the end also a theory of change workshops, also doing interviews, focus groups. All of that adds up, and in certain case studies, we're talking about a relatively small world, and you really need to provide some value for the actors that you engage. So like if you're saying like you take so many hours of your day to come all the way here, then there needs to be clear benefit for these stakeholders to be involved. And if then they are just asked to just fill in some survey, and then nothing happens with it, there are no action points. They've just seen or heard something, talked about something that they already understand, and there's no clear solution in sight. It's likely that that same person will not come again to your next workshop, right? And so that's really important. And I think particularly in ENFASYS, because we had this ambition of doing transformative research, taking that into account, developing flexible methodologies, and which sometimes means that we kind of tweak it a bit, or instead of doing a physical workshop, we do it online. These kind of adaptations we allowed in the process, and I think this helped the case study coordinators along in really creating these moments together with stakeholders that delivered for the project, but then also delivered for those stakeholders.
And when you said keeping engaging, giving back to them, I believe the two key factors here are important, and I want to understand how you implemented them in your workshops and in your journey with the stakeholder. The first one is indeed, how did you give back to them? It's like, how did you transform the knowledge you were getting and transform it into something that was even more useful to them, besides just the participation in the workshop? And the next one is, I believe that that stakeholders feel the most engaged when they understand and they feel that they're part of the change and that they own the change. How did it happen for you, Maya, in your case study? Did you engage these two, let's say, strategies, or did you have an understanding that was happening?
I think that in Serbian case study, thing is they realize they are part of some kind of network, of some kind of community. And before the ENFASYS and all of this process, they weren't. I think they didn't have a clue about them, they did. Now they just realize they are part of it, and as you said, they are part of the change as well, and part of they could be a part of the change and transformation. So I think that was the tool for it. That's how we managed to do this, to bring them this additional value.
And do you think that the information that they were gathering during the workshops, so the fact that they were listening to the other people, or that they had the opportunity of talking with the other people, was, let's say, the only winning point, or also the analysis of the knowledge that you were getting and that Louis was getting and that other researchers were getting in ENFASYS, and the results of this analysis actually also was interesting to them and benefited them?
I think that that helped them like to sustain in this process, like because like they were discovering like, oh yeah, I know what's going on, like here, like what we are doing, like they were discovering throughout the the workshops and all the activities. And I think that yeah, this could be useful. I think that was that's what they get it from it. They use this like the process, like also talking with the other stakeholders within the system. So they discovered like, yes, we are part of the change. That's the first thing, like that we could change something. That's the second thing, and also they learned something like from the others, like what is missing. Like for example, farmers actually discover like why is this process of decision making is so slow. That's one thing. But also like, okay, like what can we do like to overcome that process or like to influence that process. That's also something coming from the
Okay, thank you. And from the Belgian case study,
Yeah, or just in general, giving back is in many forms, because I totally agree that during the workshops there were a lot of moments where you could see that the stakeholders were really learning something, um, from each other, but also of what the project was providing to them. And so these systems maps, like these analysis based on the interviews that we did. Also, in like after those workshops where we try to like really keep those relationships going, and that can sometimes be bilateral, where you kind of follow up on certain questions, take a call, write some emails. There's a lot of like these kind of in between things that happen, and that creates trust between you, the coordinator, and the wider network, and that creates momentum within, like, for the case studies, which makes the job of the case study coordinator doing all these workshops a whole lot easier, because the people really believe in it.
what could be, on the other hand, a challenge that risks to break this momentum? Because now we have talked, let's say, how to build momentum and what is important to do in order to keep the stakeholder engaged. But I'm sure that you also have faced a lot of challenges, a lot of problems. And what can you tell us, Maya, for example? What do you think something that should not be done when you are engaging stakeholders in this type of case studies? What is a mistake that should be avoided?
I'm not talking now. I'm thinking about something else, like about the result that we need to constantly share the results, like to keep them like informed about everything, and like what should not be done. Like it's probably just if you're just organizing, the workshop and not letting them talking about something else. I think it's like if my workshops were pretty long, for example, because like they were talking among themselves about their stuff, and I didn't want to, interrupt them because it was useful for me.
But I think that's
So-
actually a great suggestion, because sometimes I feel that if you organize a workshop and it's too limited in time and you have a lot of information that you need to collect, you may end up forcing your agenda, not understanding the agenda of the people that are joining the workshop.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you create indeed this stakeholder fatigue, but also I think also the feeling of being, let's say, used to collect information rather than to own the change and to contribute to the change.
Exactly. And one more thing, it's also like you have to be very tolerant. Like when it comes to the probably they will answer what they want. That's the thing. But actually somehow at the end, like you discover that you got all of the answers that needed for the workshop. That's really interesting.
Same from you, Louis. Like you had the same experience. Like maybe not having too much of a strict agenda could help them feeling more included and part of the change.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't create that space where the participants can also come and talk about things that they want to talk about and engage on, you need to meet you need to meet the people where they are. That's, I think, a general rule in
Yeah.
yeah, true.
Also, I have to add, like, live gatherings are better, more effective.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think we discussed a lot about stakeholder engagement and how you did it at local level. I just wanted to ask Louis, maybe because you have more of a cross case study overlook. Is there anything that you would like to add on this part?
One of the very interesting things that I've learned using these systems maps, for example, like we use them for analysis, but I found that as a case study coordinator, these are also very useful tools in organizing that engagement with stakeholders. If you start mapping the actors, all of a sudden you spot like, oh, this is actually a person that has an influence or might be interested. And then you add these people on your map and you say like, okay, maybe I should contact them. And then you start thinking about, okay, but how do I approach that? And it's using those type of maps, and maybe even in a group could actually be useful. I've discovered that for myself, but I think like having this systems approach also in the stakeholder engagement was, I think, useful.
Okay, interesting. During each episode of the podcast, I ask you where people that are interested in what we are discussing could further read or listen about your work. In this case, about the other 8 case studies that we couldn't discuss today. Like, is there some material, or I saw that there are webinars on your website that you could be watching. What would you suggest listeners to read or to listen?
So indeed, on the website, there's a specific webinar regarding multi-actor processes and stakeholder engagement, where I go in more formal depth into this issue, also kind of providing general lessons, best practices. And of course, the other webinars, we go more into depth in particular cases.
Okay, thank you. Maya, do you have any suggestion? Maybe also something that you produced at local level?
Yeah, I produce a really useful material, the barriers from the Serbian case, like the regenerative farming, but it's in Serbian. Like
Okay.
it could be found on the AB site.
Okay,
but
thank you.
probably it's somewhere. It's also shared via ENFASYS. And but we are preparing the policy brief dedicated to the regenerative case in Serbia, so it's going to be interesting. And also it will be shared via website.
And that will be in English or in Serbian?
It will be in English.
Okay, thank you.
I should also add that, like our colleagues from Montpellier Business School, Maria Roglic, she has been working on a manuscript, particularly about orchestrating these type of multi-stakeholder partnerships, drawing also on the insights from the case studies from ENFASYS, to indeed like extend these experiences and learn from these experiences that we as knowledge brokers, as facilitators of change, could bring to other sectors.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope we will see you again in some of the ENFASYS episodes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.